We're breaking down a disappointing New York Giants Week 3 performance against the Dallas Cowboys. The Giants losing to their division rivals 23-16. David Turner joins us next to break it all down, what went wrong and what went right. That's all coming up next on the LockedOn Giants podcast.
You are Locked On Giants, your daily New York Giants podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, New York Giant fans, and welcome to another edition of the Locked On Giants podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast family, your team every day. And today's episode of the Locked On Giants podcast is presented by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is daily fantasy made easy. Pick 2 to 5 players, and if they score more or less than their Prize Picks projections, you win up to 10 times the amount of your money on any entry. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with the promo code LOCKEDON. That's prizepicks.com, promo code LOCKEDON. And Giant fans, the party's over, at least as far as the Giants' winning streak. New York Giants falling to the Dallas Cowboys 23-16 on Monday Night Football. And joining me, as always, to break it down is David Turner, former NFL scout. And David, that was an ugly game.
It was not a pretty game by the Giants. And in some fashions, in other fashions, I was encouraged to see certain things. And we'll get into it, obviously, as we go through it each and every week. But I'll say this, there are aspects in which we're seeing a terrible trend start, and we've identified it already once before, and we're seeing it continue. But this is going to be a long season if what we saw last night isn't fixed quick.
And, of course, the big thing, well, there were several big things that I didn't like, and I think we could start with the play of the offensive line. The interior remained soft. Evan Neal, the rookie, looked like a rookie last night. Daniel Jones was getting beat up basically on every single drop back, it seemed, and he had no help, other than for Saquon Barkley. The receivers were dropping passes or not separating or getting open. Just, I don't know. I mean, was it the play calling? Was it the performance? Was it a combination of two?
I'll say this. I think the play calling, again, is what I talked about last week. And this week we're seeing it again. Even Troy Aikman and the crew in the booth is like, why are they not running Barkley early? Why are they waiting to get him going? And the commentary in the booth was a great one, I thought, by Troy. It's like, I worked with one of the best persons in Emmitt Smith who can make somebody miss in the hole. The first person in the hole never got Emmitt down. And Barkley can do that. Barkley's got that kind of skill set where it's not often the first guy hitting him making the tackle, or if the first contact is there, the second is what really gets him down. Like, the first guy could hit him and wrap him up, but it's the second person that's really hitting him and getting him down, And Barkley's got this rare trait, in which is something you should do early. Use him early, establish the identity that we talked about should be the New York Football Giants, which is the run game dominance that they can do. That will instill offensive line help and offensive line confidence, because now you got a running game going. They've invoked their will a little bit on the defender that's across from them, and that gives them it builds that confidence, that physical confidence that I think this young offensive line needs as they learn to gel together. Kafka in his play calling gets too damn cute with reverses and misdirection, and to my, what I call, quarterback dominant calls, which is throwing calls, screen calls. He's working the outside instead of doing what an old Bill Walsh team would do, which would be establish the run, get what we call the jabs going in boxing terms, right? Get that jab established, and then you can start throwing other punches. But without getting the jab established, the other stuff is just cutesy. And when you have a defense like the Dallas Cowboys, they don't have the biggest defensive line. Like, you watch how they started to have to walk linebackers up and do stuff. Why? Because in week 1 against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they got exposed. A physical run game could dominate their defensive line. It can neutralize a Micah Parsons because Micah, as rare of a talent in pass rush he isn't the ultimate best run defender. He's good. Don't get me wrong. I'm not killing Micah in any way. I'm just saying he's not like a dominant run force guy. He's a dominant pass rusher, okay? Lawrence is a dominant pass rusher. That's what they want to do. So when you come out of the game and you're throwing the ball like the Giants did, I'm like, what are you doing? Like, establish this run, get after them. And then also, when you want to be physical, you got to use your tight ends in that run game. 12 personnel, let's go. Like, get that 12 personnel, put 85 in the backfield a little bit, let him, be a fullback, H-back style guy, come up and hammer and hit, inside linebacker, give him some easy blocks to go, right? And then next thing you know, you can impose your physical will onto somebody and actually keep moving them and keep moving the chains. So that all being said, I didn't see that last night. And the offensive line struggled because of it. The play calling didn't help them at all. They weren't using their tight ends much in pass blocking. They were asking Saquon Barkley to step up and take blitzing linebackers on. They were asking him to chip Micah Parsons on his way out of the backfield, which left Lawrence one-on-one against, like you said, Neal, and Neal looked like a rookie. So it's like you saw what happens when you have two dominant pass rushers on the same team. You got to pick your poison. But if you use a tight end to double one of those pass blockers, and then the back chips the other one going out of the backfield, that helps the offensive line. Blocking with 6 is something that not just CAFA isn't doing, okay? But a lot of offensive coordinators in the NFL aren't doing, which is exposing quarterbacks to absolute just mayhem in the backfield. Blocking with 5 is so hard, especially when you got quarterbacks holding the ball. But this offensive line that the Giants have cannot continue to block with 5 and hold up to pressure versus top defenses.
Now, if they're going to do that, one thing I was kind of surprised is why they didn't slide that pocket around, give Daniel Jones maybe, half a move left and right, get him a clean spot because, he had no place really to step up to throw the ball.
No, I agree with you. Again, play calling will help Daniel Jones if they rotate the pocket. I said that actually, it's funny you bring it up. I was driving home. I watched the game at a friend's house last night, and I was driving home. I was talking to my mom. My mom watches the game, that's how she is. And I'm like, Ma, they didn't move the pocket once for this guy. Like, they didn't swing the pocket once. They didn't give him a half roll. They didn't get away from pressure. They know they're going to single block on the backside. So half roll him, go, even if they got to half roll him to the boundary and let him throw back across the middle. I mean, Daniel's got that kind of arm talent. He can do it. He's not Pat Mahomes or anything, but he's still got arm talent. He can do it. Mm-hmm. There's just ways to do it. And that's what I'm saying. Play calling is something that's really hurting them early in games. And last night we saw it hurt them late because Daniel, by the end of the game, was trying to do everything with his legs. You saw him running in the second half at least, I want to say at least a half dozen times. And he was picking up first downs and he was doing things. But again, I don't think Daniel had the confidence in his receivers or the play calling last night in the second half. That's why you saw him rolling around, running, and trying to do more for himself. He did hold the ball often last night, which surprised me because, again, the first couple of games, I thought he did a really good job getting the ball out of his hands, getting it into his receivers' hands, and letting them make plays. Last night, I was counting multiple times where I hit 4 seconds before he released the ball, or he was running around with the ball still in his hands at 4 and 5 seconds. I'm like, man, you got to learn, Daniel, to throw the ball away, live another day, especially when you're behind in a game. That clock management is on the quarterback as much as it is on the coach. And when you need to save time on the clock because that third down is not going to happen, like accept that third down is not going to happen, save the 6 seconds that you're scrambling around, get rid of the ball, keep it for later in the game because that can count, a couple drives in the second half yesterday. I want to say the Giants had how many drives do they have here? They had like 5 drives, I think, in the second half.
Mm-hmm.
And again, if 6 seconds per drive, there you go. You wound up having 30 more seconds on the clock. That forces the Cowboys at the end of the game to punt the ball because they can't get a first down. Boom. You get the ball back with 26 seconds to go down and try to score. Little things like that add up. But when you waste that time, when you know you're behind, it's going to cost you late in the game.
That's a really good point, by the way. Really good point, because Giants, they did lose the time of possession battle. First time all season long, I think they've lost it. But you're right. Clock management is huge. It's interesting you say that, because I was curious to see what would happen if the Giants won the coin toss, and they, of course, did, and they deferred. I said, okay, I can get that, because maybe this game comes down to whoever has the ball last, and was not meant to be. Hey, Giant fans, playing daily fantasy sports based on player projections has never been easier when you visit prizepicks.com. Pick 2 to 5 players, and if they go on to score more or less than their Prize Picks projections, you will win up to 10 times the amount of your money on any entry. There's no competing against other people. It's just you versus the projections available. Prize Picks is currently operational in over 30 states and in Canada, and offers projections on every sport. Entries can be made in 60 seconds or less, and Prize Picks offers safe and fast withdrawals. Download the Prize Picks app today, or go to prizepicks.com and sign up and play daily fantasy sports. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with the promo code LOCKEDON. Don't forget to enter that promo code at sign up. That's locked on at prizepicks.com. Staying on the offense and Danielle for a moment, the receivers, can we talk about that? I mean, I think the average last night, and I'm going off of memory here, but according to Next Gen Stats, the average separation was like 2.91 yards in the NFL in week 3. Not one Giant receiver, other than maybe Chris Myrick, I think was either Myrick or Bellinger. It was one of the tight ends, but not one wide receiver was able to get open and get that kind of separation. I mean, Kenny Golladay was like at 1.4 yards. And of course, Golladay with the drops. I mean, are they just not scheming these guys open, or do they just flat out stink?
No, they don't stink. Let's just start there. They don't stink. I don't think I think they're the way in which they're managing the receivers stink right now.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Receivers are ego guys. They are. You got to feed the ego in order for them to feed the plays. Like, that's just the way they are. I've been around some of the greats, from Chris Carter to Jerry Rice and Tim Brown early in my career, to Randy Moss. As humble as they sound, in the press and when they're doing media, those guys want the damn ball. and if they're not getting fed, they're not happy. Like, it's just the way it goes. And with this whole earn the right to play mentality that, Dave was trying to instill, it's like you heard it in Galladay's press conference last week. They're not paying me to just play. They're paying me to, get out there and do, play. They don't want me to sit here. That's what they're paying me to do. Get out there and play. And 2 weeks ago, he had 2 plays. This week, I can't even tell you. I saw him maybe 4 times on the field, and he dropped balls. You gotta put the triple-headed monster on the field and say, these are our receivers, damn it. You all got to go play and make it happen. And if you're not going to put Tony, Shepard, and Golladay on the field consistently together and let them go earn it, then cut them, move on, and get whoever it is on the field consistently. You cannot do this rotational thing with receivers, and think they're going to freaking work their way out of it. CeeDee Lamb had one of the worst drops I ever saw last night in open field on a crossing route. I mean, if that was an arrow, this young man would have been in the hospital getting it removed from his chest. But then later in the game, because that one drive, they built the confidence in him, right? They threw it to him. They targeted him like 4 times. He caught a one-handed freaking circus catch in the corner of the end zone, which won the game for him, right? I mean, you have to feed the receivers. If you're not going to feed the receivers, don't have them, and it's ridiculous. And they're paying these guys, so they have to make them their bell cows. You got to build them up. and again, in the future, Brian, like in the future, draft your receivers, sign your receivers, do what you got to do. But this year, with the receiver room that you have to go to those guys and be like, listen, guys, we're changing plans. You three are on the field until you tap out. And if you tap out too much, then I'm going to give those reps to somebody else. But I'm putting it on you horses right now. We're going because you're the best three I got. So let's go.
So unfortunately for the Giants, they didn't have Tony, who continues to struggle with injuries. Shepard looks like he suffered a career-ending injury, which is unfortunate. Galladay, they put him out there. He played something like 20 some odd snaps, but only had, I believe, 3 targets and had 2 drops. And so basically they're moving off of these guys too quickly. And, they're going to the Sillses and the Richie Jameses and,
And that's exactly what we talked about coming out of preseason. Remember, I said, like, the Richie James and Sills are good receivers, but the Galladays, the Shepard, and the Tonys, they're rare talents. That's why you got to use them and work them. And I use this as an example. I know I thought we'd get to the Shepard injury stuff, but I wanted to just say the mentality of the coaching staff is what I was trying to go with there. The mentality of the coaching staff needs to be, these are our receivers. These are where we're going. This is what we're doing,
Mm-hmm.
And again, Shepard, my heart obviously pours out for him because he's such a fighter. He's come back from so much already.
Yeah.
And it's awful that this happens to him game 3 in this year.
Yeah.
Again, Tony's struggling with the injuries. The young rookie that they drafted this year, Robinson's
he's out with a knee sprain.
Right. So are they going to have to turn to whoever they turn to? Yeah, but whoever you turn to, you got to be like, hey, you're our guy, and we're going to target you 8 times a game. And we're going to expect you to have 7 catches and 120 yards and a touchdown every game. We need that from you. And until they put that kind of confidence and that pressure on them, I think they're going to have a hard time figuring it out, And Galladay has to be in the mix because he's a rare talent. Yeah. Sills, James, and these other guys are good talents. They are, but they're not a rare talent. And until they get Galladay to buy in, this offense is gonna struggle. People are gonna start loading the box because now they don't have Tony, they don't have Robinson, they don't have Shepard. So until you prove your receivers can be like threats, I mean, look at what Dallas did with the undrafted 7th round drafted rookie. He's come out in the last couple of weeks with Cooper Rush, who again, you figure they're going to have a connection because the 2 of them have been on the practice squad and stuff together, right? They've been taking the second 13 reps. He comes out and have a stellar game for his 2nd game in a row. And there's nothing that keeps the Giants from doing that now, except, targets. Like last night, targeted Shepard 10 times. He only had 5 catches. Barkley, again, 4 for 4. Bellinger, the tight end, 4 catches, 5 targets. James, 4 for 5. Sills, 4 for 2. Altogether, they only had 32 targets. And then we had 25 runs, And we were down late in the game. We were down. We couldn't stay on the field. We couldn't like it was rare we had drives that were solid. I mean, when you go to the drive chart, we had the first and second drives of the game were 11 and 14, but then we went 4, 7, then the 5th drive was 10, 6, 4, 3. We got
9 and 3.
9 and then a 3. So when we lost, like you said, we lost the time of possession by over 5 minutes. The defense looked tired in the second half because we were out there so long.
Yeah. Yeah, they definitely were. So before we move off the offense, we've got to talk a little bit about Daniel Jones, because I thought, all things considered, he didn't play that badly, given that he was running for his life. And yes, he was holding on to the ball at times a little too long. But let me ask you, having been a personnel guy, how do you evaluate a quarterback, or when you're trying to evaluate this guy, what are you looking for when his offensive line is basically not giving him the protection, when his receivers are letting him down? So what can you hang your hat on with a quarterback?
Okay, so when I would evaluate, I've seen a lot of bad quarterback play, me, where I've been. I've seen a lot of bad. But I've also seen a lot of good, obviously,
Right.
right? In my career, I've seen a ton. I've watched Brett Favre play. I've watched Dan Marino even early in my career play, and I've been fortunate to see Peyton Manning and Phillip Rivers and Eli up close. Kurt Warner, all sorts of great quarterbacks play week in and week out. You have to evaluate their decision making first, where they're choosing to go with the ball, and then second, ball placement, where they're putting the ball for their receivers to catch it. Is it always in traffic? Is it always high? Is it a tough catch? Or is it an easy catch where they can run after the catch? For me, I watched Daniel make one of the most impressive throws I've ever seen, like legit last night. When he was scrambling, he had somebody in his face. He threw the ball over a linebacker on a dime on an out route. Like that's like throwing a curve ball, but going up and then down like a roller coaster style ball while somebody's in your face and you don't have full extension on your arm. Like that was all forearm and wrist. And I can't explain to you guys unless you like used to watch Tommy Maddox pitch when he was a pitcher and he had sick control over the ball. Like that's so hard to do. And I'm not trying to just jump in Daniel's lap and, be like, oh my God, he's the best thing since sliced bread. I'm not doing that. I'm just saying like that throw in itself, like go back to YouTube or wherever you're going to find the replay and find that throw was in the third quarter or fourth, like late third, early fourth quarter. And it was a throw to the right side. And I was like, oh my God, they replayed it on, Troy Aikman was even talking about like, oh my God. And I was like, I know. That throw is so hard, and he had been getting beat down all night. It would be so easy for him to tuck that ball and put it away and just go down for this another sack. And he stood in there, and he exposed his freaking hand to that rusher's helmet, and he threw this ball. It was just amazing. So I think Daniel Jones so far this year has done a good job with decision making. I think this year Daniel Jones is, prior to other years, he's done a good job. He's thrown a couple balls in bad spots. We identified that. He's made a couple bad decisions, but he's doing a pretty good job. Last night, he straight tattooed players, and they dropped balls on him. Like, he was, 20 for 37? He easily could have been 27 for 37 last night. He missed some throws, but again, like you said, he was battered and bruised and getting beat up. You got to look at decision-making and then ball placement. Then you move down to, is he holding the ball, causing the offensive line to look worse than they are? He did that a couple times last night, at least on a half a dozen throws. He did that. He needed to make a quicker decision, and he needed to get rid of the ball. I don't think the receivers are as open as they need to be right now, but Daniel's doing the best he can with the little windows that they are giving him to throw into. I mean, he's hitting people, but they dropped balls on him last night. I mean, I know in preseason I gave these receivers a lot of credit for not dropping balls, and it was awesome because I was like, man, that was great. Like, we talked about it. I said, I didn't see a ball on the ground. He was like, it was awesome, right? But this week, it was atrocious. The receivers dropped balls. It was atrocious. I think the offensive line blocking was atrocious. I think, and more the blocking schemes. When you're asking Breida to step up and take on linebackers, you're calling the wrong protection. Like Breida is not that guy. He needs to chip and go out of the backfield. When you call a protection that's going to force him to step into the middle of the line and take on a blitzing linebacker, that's not protecting your quarterback. That's when you put Myrick into the backfield. Let him step up and take on the freaking block, the blitzing linebacker, not Breida. You know what I mean? Know your personnel here, coach.
Yeah.
But I think, honestly, I'm still on the Daniel Jones train. I think if they fix that offensive lineup and the blocking schemes, when I say that, run the ball better and earlier in games, Daniel Jones will do better. But that poor young man, I mean, he ran around. He tried to do everything last night. He tried to win that game on will and on his shoulders. And I think he's still in the ice bath. I think he's still in the ice. I don't think he's gotten out yet.
I'm sure. I was going to say that poor kid must have been sore as heck last night.
I mean, but his whole career, people want to kill Daniel Jones for this and that. But he's been running for his life since he's got in the league.
Yeah.
So,
much.
so it's like, it's hard to be successful when you don't have room to throw the ball.
Yeah, absolutely. And you and I talked about the blocking schemes last night. We were texting and we were talking. You were mentioning just what are they doing?
Well, I don't understand how they have two decent tight ends. And Myrick can go in the backfield and be a quote unquote H-back, fullback, Chris Cooley type player, and that extends your offensive line. So when Lawrence wants to go one-on-one with Neal, you motion a tight end that way. All of a sudden, Lawrence is lined up inside or outside shoulder of the tackle. So when he comes off the ball and that tight end's now there, that makes a nice tight package. And then going out the back way, you got Micah Parsons coming off the edge. Well, you can chip him. And then that helps your tackle there. Boom. You're good. Now you got 3 on the inside to hopefully block 2 or 3, and you should be all right. We know the interior of the Giants' defensive line or offensive line is not that good. But if they can work together in tandem with each other and not have to worry to scrape out and help a tackle, that helps them. That simplifies the scheme for them in a lot of ways. We're not seeing that. And I know people are like, well, what will you tell them? Well, I'm not on the staff. Trust me, guys. If I was on the staff, I would be in Brian Daboll's office because I'm brazen, and that's what I do.
All right, let's turn to the defense. And I think one of the things we've got to talk about is just how much this team missed Leonard Williams last night.
Okay, let's be honest here. And I love Leonard Williams. I love this. I am a fan member. I got a card to his fan club, right? I'm a big fan. And that was the first game he missed in an 8-year career?
Yeah, first due to injury.
Yeah. So, dude, love him, right? Love that man. But this defense held for 3 quarters. Like at the end of 3 quarters, what was the score? 13-13, wasn't it?
I think no, wait, was it 3 quarters? Let's see. Giants had 13. Yeah, 13-13.
So this defense held for 3 quarters. And I call that a hold because, there's weapons on the other side. I know they don't have that, but they still got both their running backs. They got CeeDee Lamb. They got this emerging young receiver. Like they got some weapons on that offense there in Dallas. They went and got Jason Peters, who should have been a Giant. I can tell you that story someday. But and he's playing guard for him. And that's a monster of a man playing guard and helping that rookie out on calls and stuff. And that was a great pickup, great idea. He's 40 years old. I don't know how long he's going to last, but guess what? That helped their offensive line last night a lot. But this defense, Wink had this defense dialed up, and for 3 quarters, they did a really, really good job. If the Giants could have just stayed on the field more with those drives, as we talked about, those middle parts where they were at 4 and out, quick 7, 6, 4 and out, 3, if they could have gotten some more time plays there, letting the defense catch their breath there in that middle part of the game, it really would have helped this defense out because they were playing without Leonard. I know, and the 2 young kids, they looked like they were in preseason last night. Both, Thibodeau and Ojulari, they both were back right. They both were trying to play, but you could tell they weren't at full speed, and they were still
on a pitch count, actually.
Yeah, and then you could tell they were trying to figure it out, like the one wheel route that the tight end, the young tight end, Fredrickson or whatever his name is, caught. Ojulari got aggressive, came upfield instead of peeling and running with him. And those are just mistakes that are going to happen early in the season, especially when kids aren't playing in preseason a whole lot and stuff. So it's going to happen. It happened in week 3 instead of 1 and 2 because of injury. And like you said, they're on a pitch count. So you don't see the full teeth of them yet, right? You don't see it all. But again, on this defense, they held as long as they could, in my opinion. And the offense just didn't come in and capitalize. If you look at the drive chart for the Dallas Cowboys, first drive was 5 plays. Then they had 10. Then they went 5, 9, 2, 3, 9, 11, 4, 5, and 2. So you only have 3 or 4 long drives here. Most of the drives for the Dallas Cowboys were 4-3-5 drives. That's what you want to see when you come out of this, So your defense did a decent job there, and you got a punt. They led to a field goal, punt, missed field goal, punt, then 2 touchdowns back to back on 9 plays and 11 play drives.
See, I say that about Leonard Williams because the Cowboys ran for 176 yards and Pollard had that 46-yard run. And this is the second game in a row that an opponent, I mean, granted, I don't think it hurt them in the grand scheme of things, but that Pollard went right through the hole where Leonard Williams would have been. And that's what I'm talking about.
But again,
you missed that run. You missed his run defense, if nothing else.
If Leonard Williams was on the field last night, trust me, some of those 10-play drives are probably a lot less, okay? Like, he's a dominant individual.
Yes.
He is going to help this defense in every way. Don't think what I just said was trying to discredit his impact. No. I was just trying to give kudos to a defense that really played hard last night.
They did.
And like you said, if you take that 46-yard run from Pollard and the 27-yard run from Elliott, that's 53 yards. Okay, they still would have given up over 100 yards rushing. But that being said, even when we played Carolina last week, we only gave up 1 long run, right? Mm-hmm. Here we gave up 1 long run and a couple little, 10-yard runs here and there. So again, Leonard Williams playing, helps that defense. That rushing goes way down, okay? Yeah. But also, you gotta understand, man, they ran the ball 30 times last night, and they were going after them. They were trying to really push that defense around. It was a long game for that defensive front. It was a long game for them. Mm-hmm. They're in ice tubs for a long time last night too. They were tired. They slept well. These boys slept well last night. So I mean, I'm not trying to take anything away from Leonard Williams and his contribution to the Giants defense this year. I'm also just trying to say Wink's defense through 3 quarters only giving up 13 points. It bent, but it didn't break. And if they were able to catch a little bit more wind there in that second half, they probably could have finished that game out. Those 2 long drives back to back really hurt them.
What did you think of Wink's play calling last night?
I thought he was limited in what he could do because he had pitch counts for the young kids. He didn't have Leonard Williams, so he was limited what he could call. I also think his pass rush didn't get home on rush when he did dial up blitzes. And that was a problem for him because, Wink wants to pressure. He wants to put, pressure on the face and get the quarterback off their spot, get him moving around. We didn't see that consistently last night when he dialed up blitzes. And that exposed the secondary because, as we know, we have questions on the outside in the secondary. And when he's blitzing and they're not getting home or moving the quarterback off their spot, the secondary is just not going to hold up. And we saw that on a couple of those drives. He dialed up some blitzes and he got caught. And it was mainly because people weren't getting home. And I'll tell you what, Jason Peters, for a 40-year-old man playing that left guard spot, I know I'm talking line, and most of the listeners are already tuned out because I'm talking line. But that was a hell of a job, what he did last night. He neutralized one of our better pass rushers playing that left guard position last night.
Yeah, he still has it. I mean, good for him that he still has it and found a home. So, here we are. It's Tuesday, the day after, depending on who you read or who you listen to, the sky is falling. It's like the honeymoon is over for the Giants. But when you look at this team as a whole, yes, they have some issues that they have to resolve. The offensive line, obviously. Special quarterbacks, teams. The receivers is emerging as a big need. Special teams too. Yes, they gave up another big, return.
A return. They let a kick get blocked. They gave up a big return.
Yep, there was a jailbreak on that block kick.
I'm on special teams because we're not good enough to leave a third of the freaking plays on the field. Like, to me, Jamie Gillian and Graham Gano are MVPs almost, right next to Daniel Jones. I mean, Jamie's turning the field, giving the defense long fields to go, and then but the guys aren't filling the lanes to make the tackles. Like, watch where people are catching the ball. Like, Gillian is changing I worked with Shane Leckler, right? Like, I've seen great punters and Fiegels and stuff. Like, I've worked with great punters.
Fiegels was a master.
Yeah. Gillian's got ball control. He's got a heck of a leg, but these special teamers aren't filling the lanes correctly and keeping discipline, which are ruining his ability to really be special. You know, I think Gillian's going to have to start learning how to coffin corner it out and not trust them running the lanes and just put the damn ball out of the side of the, you know, wherever it is. Like, just get it out of bounds down at the 5-yard line or at the 10 even, you know, just use your leg and let it sail out of bounds. Don't worry about people coming and running, you know. Like, it's getting crazy. Like, I'm so angry about them filling lanes.
Yeah. The lane integrity is just awful.
It's just so bad right now.
But, you know, just go back to what I was going to ask you is this team, we know it has a lot of needs that it still needs to fill. But overall, do you see enough of a core to be encouraged moving forward?
Absolutely. Like, everything we're talking about can be fixed. We didn't just, I mean, like you said, the receiver concern is a big question mark now. When you don't have Shepard, you got the 2 young kids down, and Galladay doesn't seem to be bought in or appreciated, right? So that I don't know if can be fixed. But the offensive line can be fixed with just sewing up some blocking. Like I said, use the tight ends, maximize your personnel in ways in which will benefit sustaining blocks and keeping your quarterback upright, right? Like, that can be fixed. It's just drawing up protection a little different, utilizing your personnel a little different, making sure Barkley isn't out there pass protecting, you know, he's out there being utilized as a pass catcher or a runner and maximize his energy that way, you know? Yeah, he's going to have to pick up some blitzes maybe 3 times a game, cool. But if he's picking up blitzes 6, 7, 8 times a game, you're wasting his talent. You got other people that can be blocking doubles. You don't need to use him, okay? And we've seen New England and Buffalo use a 6 offensive lineman many times, you know, in the run game and stuff to really move people. They need to start thinking about doing that, okay? Because they need to establish this run early and often and let Saquon get in there and you open up holes for him. If you need to use a 6 offensive lineman, do it. Yeah. Like, just get this physical run game going because that's really your identity, okay? That's fixable, right? That's an easy fix, just an easy personnel change. Defensively, you know, the young kids getting off their pitch counts, getting back into shape, doing stuff, that pass rush will get better. Let Wink give, like I said at the beginning, people understand, go back to week 1. We talked about this. This offense and defense, you got to look at week 6 through 17. That's when it's going to hit. I still believe that. I'm telling you, you can't get crazy and fire sell the Giants early in the season. You got to understand there's going to be working pains through this. These are fixable. It's a new staff. They're working together. They're trying new things. They got to figure this out. It's a 17-week season, 17-game season. It's a long season. We're only at 3 games. You could have went 0-3 and still go 14-0 on the back end, and you're going to be winning the division. You got plenty of time here to get in the mix and do things. Just be patient. Let them chop wood. But the trends that do concern me, like you said, are receiver depth and blocking scheme, play calling. Play calling still bothering me early in this offensive season.
Yeah, we talked about that last week, of course, but we'll see what happens. They got a short work week. The Bears on tap at home. So we'll just continue to chop wood here on the LockedOn Giants podcast. David, great stuff. Appreciate you as always. Giant fans appreciate you as well for tuning in. Wish we had a better podcast to talk about, a better result to talk about, but hey, we take it as they come. Make sure you keep it tuned in on the LockedOn Giant podcast all week long. We'll have more Giants coverage coming your way. Thanks so much for tuning in. For David Turner and Patricia Traina, we'll talk to you again tomorrow, Giant fans.